In my opinion, Spider-Man has the best villains of any other character in Marvel's history. They are big enough to hold their own movies and have their own stories. Unfortunately, when Marvel doesn't have the rights, and other studios do, they'll do just that. There are movies out there like Venom that I don't think that are quite up to the MCU level of quality. And there's some characters in a little bit of a middle area, like Marvel on Netflix. It doesn't really seem like part of the MCU. Either way, we are unlikely to see these characters pop up in an MCU Spider-Man film anytime soon. But I feel like this is a massively missed opportunity, because these are some of the most famous villains of all time. So today we're going to look at potentially recasting these actors and who could take up these roles within the direct MCU. But before we get started, I'd like to thank today's sponsor, Surfshark. Surfshark is a VPN that allows you to protect your data from being breached, which is great, but I mainly use it to change my IP address to make it seem like I'm from different countries. Like if you live in the US and you were looking to watch every Spider-Man movie and prep for No Way Home, well, you simply couldn't do so. Or you could get Surfshark and simply just change your IP address to be in South Korea. Then you've got all 3 Spider-Mans in one home. Even without changing your IP address, it just makes sense in today's age to protect your data. And Surfshark actually allows you unlimited devices. So use promo code BrianSeeker and get 83% off, as well as an extra 3 months free with the service. So check out the description below for more details. As for casting today, we are tackling people adjacent to the MCU, meaning Sony's solo projects and Marvel on Netflix. So today we're casting Venom, Carnage, Kingpin, Kraven, and Morbius. So let's recast Spider-Man. First up, let's tackle Kingpin. Now don't get me wrong, I would love to see Vincent D'Onofrio come back in the role, and just to see him pop up in a Spider-Man would be totally fine with me. But it looks like Marvel didn't really enjoy the Netflix shows, and they might want to distance themselves from things like that in the future. And honestly, it's just kind of fun to recast it. So let's take a look who else could bring this role to the screen. Now, taking on a role like Kingpin is a really tough ask, and although you can go with some of the biggest or tallest actors out there, as Vincent D'Onofrio pointed out, performance really trumps all. A lot of people are actually looking at Vince Vaughn, who actually gave a really similar and amazing performance in Brawl in Cell Block 99, but unfortunately I would just see Vince Vaughn in that role, so I'm gonna look elsewhere. I end up going with Holt McCallany, who has had amazing performances in the past, like in Mindhunter, but if you saw him in a film called Shot Caller, you'd know why he'd work here.
Know who I am?
Yes.
These cops, they need to understand that we run the show. Some get it, but the rest think the more they lock us down and isolate us, it strips us of our power. They're dead fucking wrong.
He's got the voice and the presence, but also that build. He's 6'2" and 250 pounds, and I would actually like to see him put on more weight to really transform himself into Kingpin. I also think he'd take a different approach to this role and make it a little bit more street level than D'Onofrio, and would help separate him from that Daredevil series. Either way, he is one amazing actor, and I would really love to see his take on Kingpin. So Holt McCallany as Kingpin. Next up, let's tackle Kraven. Now, Kraven is actually set to appear in a solo movie on screen for the first time, helmed by Sony. Aaron Taylor Johnson is going to play the titular character, and he's going to be in a set-alone universe, much like Venom. Now, I don't like this trend that we keep on seeing exact same actors over and over and over again, especially when they just go from comic book role to comic book role. I mean, Aaron Taylor Johnson already has Quicksilver as well as Kick-Ass under his belt. I want to do something different here, because although I agree Jason Momoa is the perfect choice, he's already Aquaman. And I really like Joe Manganiello, but of course he's Deathstroke, or even Carl Urban or John Bernthal. There are so many that would really work here. Now, don't get me wrong, I really love these choices, but I want to see someone else take this role and make it their own. That's why I end up going with Richard Armitage, who, yes, is best known for his work on The Hobbit, but say what you want about The Hobbit, that man can act, and he's one of the best part of the series. I think he can tap into that primal anger that we need here, and in a role where the voice and presence is really important, Richard just has that in spades. Like, he's actually voiced Wolverine in the past, which you could definitely see would be translated to this character. Of course, Richard is not Russian, like the character is, which is definitely a strike against him. But other than that, I do think he is the best man for the job.
You're afraid.
You're not yourself. A Thorin I know would not hesitate to go in there.
I will not risk this quest for the life of one burglar.
So Richard Armitage as Kraven the Hunter. Next up we have Morbius. Now Michael Morbius is a complex character, and one who struggles with the vampire-like state. Now I understand why they went with Jared Leto in this role, and how he would work within Sony's individual solo movie. But again, I don't like the casting here. Although Leto is a talented actor, I don't know, I'm just not sure about this one. I mean, his Joker is one of my least favorite characters of all time, and maybe I hold that against him, but still, I see someone else in the role. Now, from my time in reading comic books and seeing Morbius on screen even in the cartoons, Benicio del Toro was always my pick. He has that perfect mix of darkness, where he feels tortured, and I think he could really bring that to the character. Unfortunately, he's already the Collector within the MCU, so again, we have to look elsewhere. I went with that similar feel, someone who can play dark and disturbed, but always has an edge to their character. I want a character actor who can really transform into this role, but someone who has proved on screen that they really have that mysterious vibe. I end up going with Aidan Turner, who, funny enough, is best known for his role in The Hobbit, but disregarding The Hobbit again, he has really shown his talents on the small screen, and he really hasn't turned into a major household name yet. I feel like he's one role away from really showing what he can do, as well as he can do that complex, dark, and really bring an intensity to this role.
You dared to go rifling through those things. You're employed as a maid.
I know, sir.
And you've been a good one. And for that, you're allowed certain liberties, but dressing up in fine clothes is not one of them.
I meant no harm, sir. It was just rotting away in that
Take
old
it
box.
off.
And I thought maybe you might let me wear it.
Take it off now!
So Aidan Turner as Morbius. Next up, let's tackle Venom. Now, I do like Tom Hardy, but, and I'm probably in the minority here, he's not my favorite choice for Venom. I prefer him much more in other comic book roles, and I actually think he'd be a much better Agent Venom. I'd prefer to go younger, and more around that Tom Holland Spider-Man age. Although I know there are tons of comics where Venom has branched off and has been a well-rounded character and can really support his own story, I feel like Venom just needs Spider-Man. You can always go there afterwards, but I want him to start off in Spider-Man's story. I'd like to see him done in the original way of the comics, but done right, especially after we saw the abomination that was Topher Grace's Venom. Now, I actually want someone who looks like the comic book version. I want Eddie Brock, who's built like an enforcer and has that personality where he's a little bit power hungry, but is broken by circumstance. That's why I went with Alexander Ludwig. He has really shown in the past he can do what is required here. His take specifically in Hunger Games, one of his first roles, with someone who is burdened by the pressure of winning, and what it drives him to do perfectly translates into this character and the complexity here.
How's that? Is that what they want? Huh? I can still do this. I can still do this.
He recently has really grown as an actor, and has shown he's not just a one-trick pony. I think he would give us a well-rounded character here. Plus, he looks exactly how I want this character to look. He's 6'2" and looks like a bodybuilder. And at 29, I think he would work well with Tom Holland and what they've built up already in the MCU. So Alexander Ludwig as Venom. Lastly, we have Carnage. Much like other characters on this list, I'm gonna go less typical. I do like many choices for this role, specifically Cameron Monaghan, but if we're gonna go with that typical structure of Venom, Spider-Man, and Carnage, I want someone who can work well with Alexander Ludwig's Venom. So I like the idea of someone who's older, weirder, and a Carnage who can really play with Venom's head. I want someone who can do the craziness, but rooted in reality. I don't want a Jim Carrey-esque performance here that's over the top. I want insane, but controlled. Now, Woody Harrelson is actually a great pick, but from the moment I saw Robert Knepper on screen, I just thought Carnage. And in my mind, he has always been the perfect person to play this role. If you take a look at his time in Prison Break, he showed that personality with the certain type of insanity I think is needed here. I can see him getting to Eddie Brock's head and really warping him.
Why don't you transfer us all someplace cooler? Like Africa. Don't be a baby, T-Bag. It ain't that hot. Not that hot! When this guy woke up this morning, he was white. We'll step back when we get some wind blowing in here.
I also like he has that little bit of a creepy look with the skinnier frame that would translate well into wearing the symbiote. Now, I know there are bigger actors here who actually have red hair, but as I said earlier, performance trumps all. So Robert Knepper as Carnage. So those are my choices for some of the main roles in the MCU. Let me know if I missed the mark on this one, because I decided to go a little bit weird because I've seen so many fan castings online. Also, who would you want for these roles? And who do you want to see next in the Spider-Man villains we've never seen on screen before? As always, thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.